Hello, how are you today? Welcome to another episode of Genealogy Quick Start. Tonight, I am so honored to have a special guest here who is doing the work that we all should be doing. I am so proud of him, and I'm sure that many of you know who he is. His name is Joe Roby from Enslaved at Oakley. And wow, Joe is doing what me and Fraisine Taylor and so many other genealogists have always hoped that people who find out that their family that they had enslaved people, that they're sharing, that they're doing that research, and they are making it easier for African Americans to connect to their past. So bravo, Joe. He is here with us today to talk about researching locally, boots on the ground. I couldn't believe it when he said that. That's one of my most favorite sayings in genealogy is you have to research locally. And Joe has a brilliant example of why that is important. And then, of course, my buddies Jim and Michael came up with, but we only have one of them today, came up with a fabulous quick start. Where's grandma's birth certificate, right? Where is it? You check out my shirt here, Timbuktu. Have you heard of Timbuktu in New Jersey? Yeah, it's a community that was founded in the late 1820s by African Americans or Africans at that time, because we were not citizens at that time. So, without further ado, let me bring on my number one quick starter today, genealogy quick tip of the day, Michael John Neill. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing pretty. Is it good or well, Shamel? That rhymes. That's got to be. That's perfect. It rhymes, so it's got to be perfect. No, yeah, that's all that matters. I'm hanging in there. How are you doing?
Good. We need Jim to be here, the columnist and editor, James M. Bidler, to be here to help us with our grammar, but I think we're gonna make it through.
I think we'll muddle through just fine.
So, Michael, have you found in all of your lineages that you researched so well, did you find any that were enslavers?
Yes, some of my Virginians and Marylanders and my Kentuckians. There were some who were enslavers. Yes. And I've done a little bit of work trying to track what happened because some I know were freed, others I'm not sure yet what happened to, but I've tried to do some work to see what happened to them, when they were no longer enslaved. And it's a challenge, but it's something worth doing, but it can be difficult to do that because sometimes they stay right where they were at, and sometimes for obvious reasons they go poof somewhere else. And it's finding out those that went poof, it's finding where they went that can be a problem sometimes.
Well, one of Dr. Debbie's case studies, she has where the family was still living in the same place with the next to the enslaver in
Hmm.
the 1950s.
Wow.
1950s. Is that wild? Is that
That's
wild?
a century, almost a century later. Yeah, that is.
So, Michael, we have our regulars here know what to do. If you're out there, please let us know where you are. And if you are a member of a genealogy group, you have to tell us what it is. You need to represent your genealogy group because you never know if there is a genealogy soul out there that needs saving. So let's see. Who do we have here? Angela Allen. Hey, Angela from Houston, actually from the Black and Gold GHSC and AAGS in Cleveland. Hello, Judy. Number one fan, Judy, trying to keep cool in Chicagoland, Fox Valley Genealogical Society. Hello, Tinsley. Good evening from Evergreen Park, member of AAGHSD. What's the SD, please? Um, Hi, Cassie from Dr. Debbie's group, Cleveland AA GS. And we have Jean as well, and Jean is being shy. Jean is AAGG amongst many other genealogy groups. Adrian, how are you, Adrian? I see you sneaking into Philly and leaving. So, welcome from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Amazing genealogy group there as well. And we have another black and gold. How are you, Terry Burks from Chicagoland? For some reason, oh my goodness, StreamYard, you are not my friend today. Here we go. Columbus, Ohio. AAGHSC from Chicago. Yes. Oh, she is your cousin. She is the cousin of our special guest. Valerie Ann is here from Philly. GSP, Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania. We have Adrian. Yes, GGAAGS. FW. That's that Fort Wayne group. Hello, Valerie Meltzer. Guten Abend. Did I say that? Guten Abend. Did I say that right, Michael? From Altoona, Pennsylvania, in Blair County. He's like, you did it. You were in the neighborhood. Genealogical Society and Mid Atlantic, BCG. Love it. Hello, Debbie Klein from Raleigh, North Carolina. And here we Tinsley, you are in my black and gold. How are you? And then we have Sarah Dobson Fulham from Harrisburg. Yay! Mid-Atlantic APG. And one day, Sarah, I dream that you're going to say GSP. Hi, June Hall from Shaker Heights, Dr. Debbie's AAGS, Cleveland. All right. Thank you so much for letting us know you're here. Let us get started with Michael's quick start today. And I did say that our Mr. Bidler will not be here with us tonight, and we miss him. So, Michael, I noticed that you have a pattern here. So today you are doing, where's grandma's birth certificate? Why did you and Jim feel this was a good quick start to do?
Well, locating records can be difficult, and we always, especially with vital records, you need to know where the event took place. And many times we think we know where it took place, but that knowledge may be incorrect. It may be it's usually secondary unless it's a child we were actually at their birth, and we might not know exactly where the birth took place. The lines might have moved. Family might have moved more than we realized. Sometimes they told us the wrong location because there was a reason why they didn't want us to know. That isn't always the reason. People sometimes dramatize too much. Sometimes seriously, sometimes people just get mixed up and they forget. Once in a while, there's some drama they're trying to hide. I won't deny that. But oftentimes there's just, other miscommunication or whatnot. And so finding it can be difficult because, especially once we get before state registration of vital records, in many places, they're at the county level. And if you don't know the county and there's no statewide index, then it's a county by county search. And sometimes that can be difficult. So focusing in on where that was, trying to find as many sources as possible that could clue you into where that birth certificate is can be helpful. And sometimes people say, well, if I knew all that information about what was on it, I wouldn't need it. And I understand that. But the thing is, one, you never know what's on that birth certificate.
You don't know.
You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And it's very true. So thinking about where it could be is something we all need to think about and trying to locate it because, like I say, you don't know what's on it until you see it.
And it definitely can be a very emotional thing. We do street genealogy for parking day in Philadelphia. And there was a guy, like, he was almost in tears. He was like, they won't tell me. No one will tell me. I asked my grandma, she won't say anything. I was really concerned, like he was really being emotional, but then we found out he had been off his lithium. So we encouraged him to go handle that. And but we found out where grandma was from, and he cried once he found out where grandma was from. So you too can find out where grandma is from. So Michael's
sometimes
going to show you.
it
Go
is an
ahead.
emotional experience for people to find those things out. Sometimes it can't be, isn't it?
Yep, yep. All right, Michael, are you ready for where is grandma's birth certificate? Is that an affirmative?
That is an affirmative. I've unmuted myself. People all over would love to mute me, but I have unmuted myself, so you should be able to hear me with no problem.
All right, let's go ahead and get started with this quick start. So step one is to determine the appropriate date and location. So what are some sources that we can use to know a way to start?
First of all, track the person in every census record that you can. That would be a start. That's not going to give you a super precise location, probably just a state, but sometimes that's more than what you have. Look and see if there is an obituary for that individual. Go through any personal papers, family papers you have that might give you that location or clues to that location. You can ask relatives. Sometimes they'll give you clues, sometimes they won't. But I would start with those home sources in addition to census and an obituary, perhaps even contacting the funeral home where they're buried from. They may have some of that information as well.
Exactly. All great locations to look for clues to where the date and location are. Mm-hmm.
And one thing to add to that, if you're grandma, you can't find, say, and there's several siblings she has, make certain you can't find hers. Look for theirs. There may be clues on theirs. They might have moved around a lot, but you just looking for theirs might give you some clues, indirect clues, to help you find the one that you really want, so to speak.
Fantastic. I love that because we're always so laser pointed on that. Our direct ancestor, we don't kind of look to the side and up and down. And so I love that idea of using.
One last thing, and then I'll let you go on to
Yes.
step through. If they were urban, make certain you've tried to find them in city directories. If you roughly have a year when the person was born, make sure you've located the parents in city directories around the time of birth. That could be helpful.
City directories. Thank you, Michael. So step two is then to which local, county, and state records are available. So this is where, can you break this down? Because this is where it can kind of get confusing, where to look when.
I'm going to give you the lawyer answer and say it depends. No comment, but I will say it depends, because in many states there's a time where there was mandatory statewide registration. There might also have been a time where at the local level they had to keep a copy of a birth record. That's kind of what our focus is today. So those years are often different. In some states the county or local records start first, and then the state records start after that. During that time period where there's just the county record or a local record, that's the place where you would look. When we're talking after state registration, typically there was a copy sent, the original was sent to the state, and there might have been a duplicate copy retained at the county level. So in those cases, you would look it'd be the same certificate, hopefully, but there would be two potential places where that could be, the state and the county. And so, older ones may be on Family Search.
Yes.
You'd want to look at the Family Search wiki for the state and county, or town in some places where you suspect your person was born, to see what records there are. And then if it's in that time period when there's statewide registration, make certain you've looked for the county copies of Family Search and or the state copies of Family Search, because maybe the state let them digitize and the county did not, or vice versa. So you want to look at all jurisdictions.
All righty. We have some great examples, of course, Michael will share once we kind of lay it out here. Step three is then to access the record. So you talked about, for the older ones, go to Family Search. Are there any other places that you should look for these records?
Sometimes the state archives might have a copy of them, potentially, but after that, if those places where you don't find it, you'll want to look at the county for their record of it, or the state Department of Vital Records, or whatever it's called in your location, to access that. Keep in mind, in some states, there's time periods you have to wait before you can access the, birth certificates, and it varies from state to state because it's dependent upon state statutes. So what's true in Kansas is not true in New Jersey or California or wherever the case may be. But Family Search would be your first place to look because it's usually free. And then
Yes.
either at the county or the state, again, it depends on the time period whether you want to look at one or both of those jurisdictions. But they would indicate what the requirements are for you to access those. And
There's a site that I love to use to tell you where records are, and it's a commercial site, but it gives you, because they're commercial, they have the details on where they can charge you to get the record from.
right.
And by
But
using that, it tells you when vital records are, and it's vitalrec.com, I think
right.
it is.
The one thing you want to remember, and then I want to address a comment in the chat real quick, is you don't need an overnight copy of great grandma's birth certificate. You don't pay the extra fee for that. Save that money to buy another record or do something else. You don't need a copy that fast. You might want it that fast, but it's just, there's other ways to use your genealogy funds. So like, use that site to get clues about access and how to acquire.
But don't pay.
But don't be paying all that extra money to get it tomorrow. And as mentioned,
And my first one was was like, I had to get like the certified one. I paid like $30. You don't need that. You just need the official one.
A copy of it for genealogy purposes. You're not trying to get a passport or a driver's license.
All right, so we got our access.
You don't need that certified copy of it. And there's a comment in the chat for those that are attending live about delayed birth certificates. That's another good thing to keep in mind. Those, where they're filed, can vary. In some places, if you were born in 1903 and in 1953 you filed for a delayed birth certificate, it'll be stuck in with the 1903 ones. In other places, it'll be stuck in a separate set of records. It varies from one place to another. I can't say here is how it is everywhere because that isn't how it works. But you want to ask, if you think it was a delayed birth certificate, you want to ask where are those filed in your location, and they should be
fantastic. Great question. I think that was Jenny. At step 4 is to search for grandma. So we're kind of looking at those same places for that, right? Or do you want to talk about any tips on how to search?
Well, it kind of depends. Are you going to query a database? Are you going to look in an index? That Family Search made or Ancestry made? Are you looking in an index that the original record keeper made? But you want to indicate where you search for those records. Did you search on Family Search? Did you search on Ancestry? Did you go to the courthouse? Whatever the case may be, so that you know later what you did. So if you don't find it, you can problem solve.
So that's part I like. I think the greatest thing you just said, not that all of it wasn't great, is the negative research, to kind of document where you've searched so that you know where you've been and you've covered all the places. All right, step 5 is then to evaluate the record. Let's look at what you and our buddy Jim actually submitted. So what do we have here?
This is the death certificate for Jim's grandmother, I believe, and she died at the age of 27. And I know we're talking about birth certificates, but he's having trouble. I don't think he has still yet found her birth certificate, because all for the birthplace here, it's very helpful. It says Pennsylvania, and that's odd. And I think what he's having to do, I think, and I'm not as familiar with Pennsylvania records as he is. I'm trying to remember what he said in the notes. But if that's before statewide registration, then he's going to he'll start with whatever county he thinks she's born in, and then he'll have to move. If she's not there, then he'll have to move around to other adjacent counties. The thing about this individual is her parents were not married when she was born. and that could be an
Mm.
additional challenge to try to find her. You might not be exactly certain where she was born. Her mother might have gone a distance to live with someone else or a home for unmarried women. You just don't know, and that
I
so
don't know.
again, I think it's before statewide registration, so it's going to require a county by county search,
Yeah, yeah. I
which
just love
makes
that
it
certificate.
more of a challenge.
Now we have a birth certificate.
Now
Thank you
we
for
have a
that,
birth
Jim.
certificate, and I think this is the top of my mother's birth certificate, and this just serves to remind individuals that births are recorded where they took place, not where the family lived. My grandparents lived in Illinois their whole
Ah,
life, but the nearest hospital at the time, in this case, you had to cross the state line to get to the hospital, and so that's why it was. I always thought it was strange. My parents were both born in Iowa, never lived there, but that's where the nearest hospital was. Um, it just serves
interesting.
as a reminder that those records are created where the event takes place, not where the person is living when it happens. Um, you just gotta keep that in mind. And was mentioned in the chat, we're focusing on actual civil copies of birth records, but if your goal is to prove or find evidence for a birth date and a place
A
of parents,
birth.
then
Yeah.
church records of infant baptisms could also be helpful. Um,
And sometimes that's all you have. So,
and exactly, in
during
some
certain
places and
time
time
periods.
periods, that's all you're going to get. You're just, in that case, going to hope they went to a church that practiced infant baptism, because they tend to be more likely to record those events. There's exceptions
Infant.
to that, more likely. This is another one, and now that I look at it, I can't remember why it was used as an. For this, no, they live near the county line. You don't know that from looking at the record. It's in Hancock County, Illinois, but the birth was in Walker Township. But if this family didn't move around too much, but they're right near the county line, there could be a very good chance, for whatever reason, maybe she had a married sister where she stayed at the end of her pregnancy, or whatever, across the county line, the birth is going to be recorded in that county. If they were individuals that, in my background, if they're farmers that rent from year to year, they may move every year, and I might not know what county they're in from one year to the next. I've got to look everywhere, especially if they tend to hover around a county line. The same thing is true if you've got urban individuals. They may be, he finds work, husband finds work somewhere, they stay there for a while, and 3 years later, it's a couple towns over in a different county or a different state, and that's where those things are recorded. The other thing you've also got to keep in mind, there's always the potential they left and went somewhere for a couple years, had grandma there, and moved back, and they never mentioned it. Sometimes because we
Yeah.
tried California and it failed, and we came back home, but we don't want to admit to our kinfolk that it failed, so it just never happened. I have a family who they went to South Dakota in the 19 aughts. Were there for maybe 5 years, and it was a lot more difficult than they expected. A couple kids were born there, but then they came back to Illinois, and there were some cousins. I never thought to look for them in South Dakota until I went to the census records for them in the 20s and 30s, and then I'm seeing South Dakota, the birthplace of two of the children, and then I discovered what went on. So that just serves as a reminder too, to look at those census records for some of those clues too.
Census records are like migration. They have looking at the kids' births is like a migration
I mean,
pattern for them.
people can lie in the census. I know that. We all know that, but it's one of the records we have.
It's a hint.
It's a hint, and people, when they gave that information for the census, they never thought in 100 and some years somebody's going to be looking at it. So they might have said something that's a clue, because they didn't know if they're going to see it.
All right, and I think you have one more here. What is
Yeah,
this?
this one is in honor of this is a German one in honor of Jim. We had to have something Germanic. This also ties into our comment about church records, because this is a church record from 1798. but it goes at the point of knowing what parish they lived in, which is, it's a location problem. And did they move around? This family moved around. They were millers. Some people move around because they have no money. These people had money, but they moved around besides. And tracking them, where they're living was helpful to find his birth here from 1798. And it also goes to show you've got to be aware of those jurisdictional lines, parish boundaries, what churches there are of the right denomination, and things of that type when you're trying to find these records.
Most definitely. So, Michael, those were fabulous examples. Did you have any other tips on searching for grandma's birth certificate?
The thing to remember is grandma might not have known where she was born. The reason when I threw grandma in as the title for this one, my grandmother always thought she was born in a certain place. And she insisted that if she was asked, she gave this one little village where she thought she was born. It's in all her records after she was old enough to be the informant on things. But that's not where she was born. She was born 10 miles in a different location, because your knowledge of your birth is from what someone has told you or what you read somewhere. You don't remember when and where you were born. It doesn't mean your knowledge of it is wrong. I want to make that clear, because sometimes I say that and people will say, "You're saying I'm not born by mama." No, you're not. It goes back to your knowledge, and your knowledge isn't firsthand. I mean, if you told your therapist you knew where you were born because you were certain, there's going to be, you're going to have a conversation about that. Because grandma doesn't have firsthand knowledge, you always have to keep in mind she might have sincerely believed that, but it might not be correct.
Might not be true. I love that, because I don't know. It sounds kind of crazy that your grandma wouldn't know where she was born. But
I mean, she was close, but she was close. That's where and I understand why she believed it, but they moved around a lot. Her father had trouble keeping a farm, as the phrase was, and they moved quite a bit. Every few years in the spring, they moved. And so she probably couldn't remember every single place she lived as a small child, let alone where she was born. So it happens. It happens.
So that is just like, it still is a little mind blowing, but I get it. And so that tells a important story about people's recollection and not that you can recall where you were born because you were too little, but I hear all these oral histories that we need to research and we need to figure it out. And you look for your grandma where she said, but you knew you had to branch out. Some people will just stay there and keep saying, well, grandma should know where she was born, but you just kind of branched out, kind of like from that spot outward, and used the census records as well.
Right. Exactly. And in that case, I found her church christening record. She was christened when she was 5 years old. And in the denomination of which she was a member, that was atypical. And there was always a pastor at the church. If there was not a lack of a pastor, there was a pastor there. And she had told me she was baptized when she was 5. And I kind of rolled my eyes that she said she could remember her baptism in that. And sure enough, she and her siblings, two of them, were baptized when they were smaller, and she was 5 years old. So she was right about that. Not right about where she was born, but in that record, her mother put the correct birthplace for her, which is where I found the actual record.
Deanie says that her mother's birth certificate says, oh my gosh, the certificate is wrong, but she was born in Port Gibson. Oh my goodness. Are they in the same county? I wonder. I would be really upset about that. Okay.
Well, because doctors make mistakes too, but that's another whole separate.
So it was a misprint. I get it. Let's run through the steps of where's grandma's birth certificate. Step 1, determine the approximate date and location. Step 2, which local county and state records are available. Step 3, access the record. Step 4, Search for grandma. And step 5, you want to evaluate the record. Michael, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
that quick start. And we will be talking to you later.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
I think I'm soloing you instead of removing you.
That's
Okay.
okay. We'll talk to you later.
Bye. Hey, give me 1 second to bring on your favorite guy. All right. Hello. How are you? I am so excited to have you here. It looks like Joe really called the troops and his fan base is here for him. Joe, I'm so honored that you did that and that you are here. So, without further ado, I am going to bring out, let me just tell you about Joe before he gets out here. When I became a on the board of GSP, the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania, for the second time, Joe was on the board, and I don't know if I'm pretty sure I told him. As soon as I got there, Joe was like, "I'm out of here," and it was like I was so sad, but we get to hang out in genealogy land together, even if we're not on the same board. So I'm going to bring out the board member I missed hanging out with, Joe Roby of Enslaved at Oakley. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me, Shamel.
You did understand that I was genuinely sad that you just like was like, I'm out of here.
I didn't. I honestly didn't realize that at the time, but yes, no, I can see why you did that, why you felt that way. But yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I miss you and all my Philadelphia friends. Yeah.
Yes, you are sorely missed. So, Joe, I'm going to ask you the question that we ask all of our special guests here on Quick Start, is to share with us your genealogy origin story. How did you get started, and when did you know that you were hooked?
Well, it actually is tied into the research I'm doing with the Enslaved at Oakley project, believe it or not. When I was around 10 or 11, I was studying the Civil War in school. And my grandfather, this is going back to the 60s, he had done geological research on his family and my grandmother's family. And we had, I actually still have them. He has these gorgeous fan charts on our wall. And so I knew a lot. I knew that we came from a very kind of illustrious Virginia family and all that. But I asked him if we had anybody who served in the Civil War, and he said I can do you one better. We have a Civil War diary in the family, Civil War diary. So I read that very quickly. I was engrossed by it, so I got very interested in history and the Civil War and genealogy, of course. But one thing I wondered when I read it is that it was full of mentions of enslaved people, and it was just their first names. And I wondered, I remember thinking this as an 11 or 12-year-old, why they only had first names and how can their descendants find them. It's easy for me
Oh,
to find my family because they had last names and I can look them up in the index and all, but people can't find their family. So cut to 20 odd years later and I figured out ways to do it.
that is so cool, Joe. I love that. You were a baby genealogist. You had the baby
Mhm.
genealogist mind, even though you might not have started doing research. I had the pleasure of meeting a 12-year-old genealogist at the Free Library of Philadelphia
Awesome.
last month. Dude blew my mind. He blew my mind. When he came in with his mom, I was like, oh, this is so cute. The mom is bringing her son to teach him genealogy. It didn't take long for me to realize that he brought her there, and she
Right.
confirmed that. So enough about my life and loving baby genealogist, which you were one of. Joe, tell us about your quick start, which is researching locally, boots on the ground.
Sure. Well, I would not have been able to do a lot of the research that I have done, not just with this project, but overall in all of my research, without getting my boots on the ground and traveling. I've been lucky enough that I've been within driving distance, or I was when I was in Philadelphia, to a lot of the places that where a lot of my family lives. So the it's just such a benefit to be able to go in person and to touch the records and to see it. Then it's I mean, it is great to be able to sit at home in your slippers and go on family survey anniversary and see it. That's a whole nother thing to touch a letter that your ancestor wrote.
Yes. So let's get to your journey
Mhm.
to tell this story, Joe. So you ready for your quick start?
I'm ready.
All right, fantastic. So let's get going with researching locally, boots on the ground. So step one is to choose a focus family. And so which side of the family is this enslaved from Oakley research from?
So this is my paternal grandmother's family. That's the
Okay.
Duhaney family. So they were. My grandmother grew up in D.C., but um, they all of her side grew up in Virginia, and that's going back to the late 1600s.
Okay, so this is your focus family.
Yeah.
And so then step two would be then to create a list of local repositories. So what were some of the repositories? You have a lot of slides, so we're going to go
I know.
through and then we're going to
We
get
do
to
this
your
fast, and
slide.
then yeah.
Just kind of high level, what were some of the local repositories that you visited?
Yeah. So some of the local ones, um, the Thomas Balse Library in Leesburg was very important. I also did go to Richmond and do a lot of research. That's the Library of Virginia,
Yeah.
Museum of History and Culture, which used to be the Virginia Historical Society, and the Afro American Historical Association in Fauquier County was extremely helpful. And there, I could, list probably 10 more, but there's,
Yeah. Those are some great ones there. Those
yeah,
are some great ones there. So you created a list of local repositories. How did you create this list? How
right.
did you assemble this list?
So I guess I did a little bit of cheating because I kind of knew the area already because some of my family lived there. So that was, but what I first did was went to Family Search Wiki, and Michael
Yes.
was talking about that earlier. And it's really a one-stop shop for a lot of different things. And all you have to do is plug in a place. It can be, a city, town, state, country,
Mhm.
whatever, and it will give you so much information.
Fantastic. That Family Search Wiki is like, you go there all the time. It's like a
Yeah,
cozy home
you
for
have to
you.
have it
So
bookmarked.
yes, you do. Step three is then to connect with family genealogists and historians. I think that's self-explanatory, and you're going to tell us exactly when we go
Right.
through the documents who
Yeah.
you connected with. Step four is to research genealogy documents. Your highlights were a couple of documents that we don't. I know we're not going to tell right now because they're
Okay,
sensitive.
we're gonna
All right.
the secret. Okay.
Yes, step five is then to share with as many people as possible, which is where enslaved at Oakley came from. Correct,
Right.
Joe?
Exactly. Yeah. I um, am a firm believer now more than ever that um, research, when it comes especially to anybody who was enslaved, that research needs to get out there in the public, and it needs to be available for people to see for free. And so
Yes.
that's why
Yes.
I'm trying my best to do things like this and to put it out there so people can find it. I wish I was a whiz at like a website. I wish I could design a website myself. Much better than I'm doing right now, but
You're doing a great job, Joseph.
I can do. Yeah.
So let's take a look at this. I think this must be this fan chart you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what you saw when you were a baby genealogist?
Exactly, right. So we had actually 2 of these hanging on our wall at home. And so one's for my paternal grandmother's side, one's for my paternal grandfather's side. Okay. And that goes out like 10 generations. And you can see it's almost all filled in.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Now, I also do want to do a caveat to that. That's my grandfather's work. Will probably spend the rest of my life going forward and verifying all that data.
Yes, it's important to verify. I like how you said that. It's so important.
Yeah. So these are the 2, the owners of Oakley, which is a farm in Fauquier County, Virginia, which is Northern Virginia. Henry Grafton Dulaney and Mary Eliza, everybody called her Ida Powell Dulaney. They're my 3rd great grandparents. And Henry served in the Civil War.
Okay.
In the Confederacy, obviously.
Okay.
Ooh.
Beautiful. Where'd you find this picture? Was this in the family, or you found it?
It's on the I probably have the citation in the notes on the PowerPoint, but it was on the Virginia Historical
Register of Historic
Places. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It was on
it's
that
gorgeous.
site. And this map, this is again, this was found researching locally, a local map, and it has the names of all the different farms. So this was something being not from that area, everybody around there says, oh, well, you refer to all the places by their names.
Yeah.
But when you are researching, none of the places, well, not usually, it's usually just, the meets and bounds, but they're not by their names. So
right.
This kind of map was extremely helpful. And I just highlighted Oakley.
Where did you get this?
This was in the Fauquier County Historical Society gift shop.
Nice. So I see you underlined Oakley and
Oakley, and then Willisville, which is a very small little hamlet, but it was the first African American a settlement after the Civil War. It was founded in 1873, but African Americans lived there. The houses that were there were 99% were slave houses.
Oh, okay, and they're connected to the people.
And they're connected to so a lot of the slave houses. There's a theory that a lot of the slave houses were in that Willisville area, and then the slaves kind of went out to the different farms and plantations in the area.
Okay.
And on this is my 3rd great grandmother's diary. So on the left is the one that I read before it was published. The left, it was published in 2009 by a university press.
Wow.
And now it has an index and all the stuff that I didn't have when I read it.
That's amazing. So where did you get this one on the left?
It was in my grandfather had it, and I don't even believe that like the genealogical library in the area around this has a copy of it. Like it's only in the family.
Wow.
Kind of document. So that actually reminds me I need to give them a copy, but they have the published version now, so it's not big a deal.
Yeah. Are there any like of these? I see there's like notations on the one on the left. Did those notations carry over to the published version in any way?
No, most of the notations are my grandfather's.
Okay.
As he went along, he learned who different people were. You know, like my third great grandmother referred to people as like Aunt Mary. So my grandfather was writing who Aunt Mary was,
Okay.
kind of things like that.
Okay.
But that
Yeah,
was
but that
extremely
sounds like
helpful.
important stuff.
It was
That's important.
very important. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So this is our wiki. This is our wiki
right.
friend that you just want to highlight our wiki
Just want to
friend.
highlight the wiki friend. Yep.
All right.
And this is the Afro-American Historical Association's website. I encourage, even if you don't have Fauquier County ancestry, even if you don't have Virginia ancestry, go to this website and you can see amazing story maps that they put together.
Oh.
And it's really the databases they have. Even if you are on like a board of like GSP and you want to see maybe how somebody creates a website, or, but it's an amazing organization.
Sounds like they did a really good job. Archive Grid, my favorite. How did this help you?
So it helped me. It actually didn't help me early on because I didn't know about this early on. I wish I did. But I kind of went back a little bit to see if I could find the things that I had trouble finding before. So actually, if you go to the next slide, that's one. This is a diary of a woman who lived very nearby, Elizabeth.
Oh, nice.
Carter. And I actually found out that her diary, which is this, so Archive Grid has over like 7 million items, records in there from 1,400 different libraries, but it only has things that are in the archives. It's the manuscripts. It's not necessarily the books.
Right. It's the manuscript archive.
Right, manuscript. Right. So I didn't learn about that her diary had been published. So I didn't have to see the original. And then the Thomas Balch Library in Leesburg.
You talked about them.
Yeah, the amazing staff, amazing library. And then these are two books that are on the shelf, but they're diaries. That's a diary, and then a researcher did an index to it.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
So you connect with some folks. I want to make sure we get to the documents, Joe.
I know exactly. Yep. Keep me on track.
Great lady.
So that is my cousin Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Yeah. She's actually the one who showed me this Bible that she directly descends from the last owner of Oakley.
Okay. And
so she inherited the Bible that was there. That was my third great grandparents, which was actually a wedding gift for them.
So she brought this out in like a bag, like this
in a Ziploc bag. Yep, Ziploc bag, which at least it was in that.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And I flipped to the pages and I got to 2 pages that shocked me.
Woo!
Which were these.
So what are these 2 shocking pages?
Well, the one on the left was the first page. It says Oakley servants, which is what most people in the South called the enslaved at that point in time. It's 80 men, women, and children listed by their years of birth, and about half are grouped by the mother and then their children.
Nice.
So that's very helpful. And that's really what jump-started my research. So here are, on the left is Allison and the right is Phyllis. So Allison, that goes to kind of the I guess more step 3 with connecting with people. Allison, I found on Ancestry. She's doing similar research.
Okay.
So that it's been really helpful to have her. And Phyllis was the first descendant I ever connected with.
Okay.
So she
Very
is a
nice.
descendant of the Willises that Willisville is named after.
Did you get goose pimples when the email came in? Did she email you? I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
and
how did it feel when you so you had your site up and she connected with you through your site?
Actually, the reason I have Allison and Phyllis on the same page, Allison connected me with Phyllis.
Okay.
I wouldn't have necessarily met. Well, I would have met her as early, but that was all before I had the website.
Okay. And so how did it?
It was still unbelievable to see the email, and it was especially amazing to meet her in person. And I spent like a half day with her, and she brought her genealogy documents, and I got to see it from her side, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh,
I shed some tears that day.
I'm about to shed some tears too. Let's move on and look at so tell this is for one of the pages.
This is just a little snippet of one of the pages, and this is one of the family groups. So I found out these are the Colemans, and this is one of the groups I started with because of the names are fairly unique. Like there's a Tulip,
yeah.
Yeah, so I started kind of with Tulip. And so I found out that her name was Tulip Coleman. She married somebody named Miles Hedgeman.
Okay.
So I researched. It was a little bit easier to research Miles Hedgeman. He was in a lot more records. But I wound up finding Tulip's Civil War widow's pension that was through
nice
Hedgeman. That took me a long time to find. That's a long story.
Nice.
And then this was another thing I would have never found had I not been boots on the ground. I went to the Afro-American Historical Association, and I met with some of the people there, and the wife of the current pastor said, "We have these anniversary booklets from my church."
Oh.
The church is a couple miles away from Oakley. And so that's Miles Hedgeman on the right. You
would have never gotten that.
No.
My gosh.
Yeah. And he was a USCT, and there's only I think there's only 4 known photos of men in his regiment, and I found the 5th. It was in the book, but
That's amazing. Oh, yeah. What's this, Joe?
So this is part of the pension file. This was signed by my second great grandfather, saying that Tulip and Miles were married in the parlor at Oakley, or the hall.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a close up of it. This is just confirming that the pension file was over 200 pages.
Yeah.
And
this is a nice sheet right here. I love that.
Yeah. And then the Chancery records, you can go to the next slide. That's just the main
LVA. And tell us what a Chancery record is.
So a Chancery case is a lot of times it's trying to decide like a monetary claim, but it's like an appellate court of like an appellate court of equity.
Okay.
So it's trying to decide things that it doesn't necessarily have a specific law for. It's trying to hash things out between family members usually.
Gotcha. So these are online. This is nice.
Yeah, so there's an index for Loudoun County that goes all the way to 1940, but you have to go in person to get the files. And so I did that, and I just was looking for surnames that looked familiar to me, and asking to pull the file, and they were very nice. I spent the whole day there. They pulled numerous files and copied numerous pages for me. And I found information, including that this was one page that a list of heirs. I never would have, it would have taken me a year to find all these people.
So these were heirs to Oakley?
Yeah, well, these were heirs to somebody who was enslaved.
Okay.
So there's, I mean, it's generations are there. And then there's like 4 or 5 slides. It keeps going, but the gist of this is naming a woman named Nancy Cephas, who's the mother of the plaintiff in this case. And I can't find her anywhere else. I can't find the name anywhere else. She was born in the 1700s. She was enslaved by the mother of Henry Dulaney, and that was in Sabine Hall in Richmond County, Virginia. So in Loudoun County, I was able to find.
And there's a lot of questionnaires, tell us
So there's deposition. So they ask questions, trying to see. I mean, it depends for different cases, but they're trying to figure out how many heirs are alive for a case. Like if they're trying to see who gets money in the will, or if there's a divorce case, they're trying to see who gets what. I believe this case was trying to decide a will and a probate. And yeah, so it was an enslaved man, his mother. I haven't really been able to find anything on her except for this, and I never would have found the information elsewhere. And that surname Cephas, I don't even think is indexed in this.
There's so much great relational information in
Yes.
here. Parents, daughters, locations, putting them like in someone's living in St. Louis.
Exactly.
And this is all a part of the chancery records that you had to send for after you found them in the index.
Yeah, I went in person to the Loudoun County Courthouse.
Okay.
They were at the courthouse.
This is great.
Yeah, and then sharing it. I made a blog, which it really was not that hard. I, paid my $59 or whatever it was to get and it was not hard. And then I made this blog post with, I thought, let me put as many surnames as I can. That was fairly easy to go into either my genealogy software or Ancestry and pull all the surnames out. And then I also
love that
a key with the places and if they were enslaved or enslaver. And
Woo, this is it. This is your magic, Joe.
Yeah. So I have right now, I have a PDF that anybody can download that has the kind of original 80 people or so at Oakley. I want to keep updating it because I personally have a lot more in my records, but it's hard to keep updating and put PDFs. So what I really want to do is put a family tree on the website.
And I think this is Joe. It's a phenomenal. We have seconds left. Joe, I want to run through your steps for boots on the ground. Researching locally, boots on the ground. First, choose a focused family. Step 2, create a list of local repositories. Step 3, you want to connect with your family and genealogists and historians. We are a family, right? Don't make me start singing. Step 4, research genealogy documents. And step 5, do what Joe is doing. Be Joe. Share with everyone. Joe, thanks for bringing your people here today.
Thank you
You
for
have a
having me.
great support system. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Get out there and research your people and share, share, share. Have a good evening.